So, what is sound design? Sound design is a weird term and it gets kind of a weird rap. People have used that term to mean a lot of different things over the years. It can just mean synthesis, and that is primarily what it means. It means being able to dial in a synthesizer just right so that it you can make the sounds that you want it to make. But it can also mean layering sounds, putting together a non-musical soundtrack for something. There are elements of sound design in all kinds of things. There's an industry called industrial sound design. That would be like the beep that your microwave makes when it goes off. That's industrial sound design. Um, I've been hired before to make little beeps and things for different apps like Zoom style apps. When you join a call, it goes ding 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 ding. I didn't make those sounds, but I've made similar sounds for other apps. There's a lot of sound design that goes into video games. Um, I would actually define sound design broadly as creating unique sounds, whether it's for musical purposes or non musical purposes. So, what we're going to focus on here is talking primarily about synthesis, kind of the synthesis element of sound design. However, I do have a sound design project here that it's really short, and I thought it would be fun to walk you through. So maybe we'll do that, and I think I can give you this session since it's all my material. Normally, when you're doing sound design, especially for sound design for a film, you can't really share those sessions because you don't own the film. But in this case, I do, even though this is for a, sort of a film thing. I'll explain it in a minute. So let's do that now. Let's walk through this session and I'll talk to you a little bit about how I think about sound design, and then we'll go into talking about the elements of sound design. Okay, this is kind of a funny project because you've seen it. You've already seen it if you're in this class. This is actually like the intro for this class. So here's how this came about. So I commissioned this artist to make this thing for me. This intro bit that you saw at the very beginning of this class. And what he gave me was this video, and it was great. I liked it, but it was totally silent, which I also preferred because I wanted to do the sound design myself. So I did the sound design here in Live. So a couple things. First of all, in order to do this, you can drag a video file into Live, and that's what I did here. It shows up like this. This will be the file's audio, which was blank when I got it. And then it pops open a new window that you can move around that shows the video. I'll just leave that video right there. And then I'll just play through this once, and so you can see kind of what I did. Okay, let's do that. Okay, now this is actually all quite simple. First, I put in this kind of boom swoosh sound. Okay, that's really it. It's very dry. But I doubled it with this sound. And that's a sound that I had from another project where I added that low descending thing. That's a very kind of fashionable, almost cinematic sound at this point. Then with this swoosh, I used the same sound again, but with some effects on it to get the kind of back part of the explosion. It's the same as this. It's just got chorus on it. So nothing fancy. This is some ship noise. This is an audio file I took a long time ago of just when I was on a ship and just walking around the ship. So it's just kind of random sounds, and there's a bunch of reverb on it. Right, and then there's also this big boom on that first one, but it's not on any of the others. That's there, but it's quite quiet, so you don't hear that. And then it doesn't come back. That makes the second one a little bit different. These are different pads, just like synthesis that I've laid down onto these tracks. And then here's our only actual MIDI, and it's just this long bass note that happens right here. So just a big bass sound that gets added into everything else right there. This kind of big opening thing is just this sound, but backwards. So this sound, again, but backwards, sounds like this. If I turn all the effects off, sounds like this. But with a compressor, a big delay, and a whole bunch of reverb, it sounds like this. So pretty simple, actually. Mostly audio, just one video or just one MIDI clip here, but this is, how a sound design session works for a film. So in order to make all of these sounds, you really need to know your way around synthesis. Even the audio file one, like these pads, are just MIDI, and then I rendered them as audio. And even these booms and swooshes and things, to really understand what we're doing here, it starts with synthesis. So let's get into that. I'm going to give you this session. You can play around with it, I suppose. It'll come with this video. So yeah, have fun with it. When you are designing sounds, there are three things to keep in mind. There are basically three elements that you can adjust on a sound, that you can craft to make that sound unique and compelling. Those three things are timbre, shape, and motion. Okay? So remember those. Timbre, shape, and motion. Let's define them. The trickiest of those three things is timbre. So timbre is a weird word. We use timbre in music all the time. Timbre literally translates as color. It means the color of the sound, which is even a more useless term. Here's what it really means. Imagine in your head a flute playing a note. Okay? Now imagine a piano playing that same note. Same exact note. Now, what makes the flute sound different than the piano? They're playing the same note. The biggest thing that makes them sound different is the timbre. It is the quality of the sound. My voice sounds different than your voice. Why? Because of the timbre of my voice. There's a lot of things that go into the timbre of something. When it comes to my voice, the things that go into it are the shape of my throat, the vocal cords, the shape of my mouth, the cold that I am still getting over, stuffing up my nose. All of these things contribute to the timbre that is my voice. And timbre, like the actual like technical things that change the sound when it comes to timbre, are called overtones or harmonics. Okay, we're going to talk more about those in the next video, so hold on to that for just a second. But the timbre is the color of the sound, the thing that makes a sound unique. Okay, now the other two are relatively simple, shape and motion. Shape has to do with, is the sound fast? Like, let's think about this sound. Okay, that has a very sharp attack. It's just on, it doesn't fade in, it's just on. And it has a pretty quick decay. It ends when the sound ends. It doesn't sustain for a while. Now let's think about, I don't know, let's think about this sound. Okay, it's on when I play the note. When I stop playing the note, it's off, right? It's kind of like the clap in that it has a similar shape. But a shape can slowly enter, it can move around while it's sustaining, and then it can fade out. There's a lot of different things that the shape of a sound can do. And the third thing is motion. That just has to do with, while a sound is happening, what is it doing? Is it just still, or is there some motion in it? Let's listen to this sound again. Now, there is motion here. You can hear it's going. There's something happening. It's not a lot. Other sounds we encounter will have a lot of motion to them, and they'll be moving around and doing all kinds of different things. So those are really the main three elements that we're always going to be working with: timbre, shape, and motion. Okay? Now, let's move on and talk a little bit about overtones and harmonics. Okay, let's talk about overtones. Get ready to have your mind blown. So every sound is made up of a ton of other sounds, like an infinite number of other sounds. It's kind of crazy. If you think about color, like the color purple is made up of red and yellow. Is that right? No, blue and red, right? God, I don't know anything about colors. Blue and red make purple. So you could say like purple is the color, and then there's blue and red, that those together make purple. Overtones are kind of like the blue and red here to the purple. For every sound, there are these frequencies all above it and maybe even below it that contribute to the timbre of the sound. I know, it's crazy. I'm going to show you. But they're predictable. So let's look at this chart. If you don't know how to read music, that's okay. Here's what you just need to understand. If I play this note, this is a very low note. That's like that note. Inside that note, that's the low C. Inside that note, there is a C, an octave higher C, and then a G, and then another C, and then an E, then a G, then a B flat, that's a little out of tune, then a C, then a D, then an E, then an F sharp, that's also out of tune, then a G, then an A, then a B flat, out of tune, B natural, C, and then it just kind of goes chromatic up from there. There's a lot of notes inside every note, and each of these notes can have a certain volume, and how loud each of these overtones are determines the timbre. Okay? It's weird. Here's another way to look at it. Here is my voice. This is just me talking. This is actually also from the intro to this video. It's hugely valuable. Okay? The blue is the waveform. That's just the waveform that you're used to seeing. But the orange are all the frequencies that make up the timbre of my voice. You can see them moving around quite a bit, but the bigger, brighter ones are the more dominant ones. And as they go higher, they get kind of darker and darker. They disappear because we're showing volume in terms of brightness or orangeness here. So you can see the kind of main tones that I'm speaking in, and then all these other orange bits are frequencies that are in my voice. Okay? So what we need to do when we do sound design is we're really sculpting those overtones, all those notes above the note that we're actually trying to play. So there's the sound, and then there's all of these notes above it that contribute to that sound. So as we do sound design, we're sculpting the original sound, but also all of those overtones above it. Okay? If you keep that in mind, it will help as you learn how to do synthesis and sound design. Now, one last thing I'll say about overtones is that there are, if you're into like mysticism and weird things, there's all kinds of lore and mythology about overtones. I would recommend to you this book, Harmonies of Heaven and Earth. I found this to be a really fascinating book. This is not a science book. This is very, very speculative stuff. But they have all kinds of things in this, like kind of almost Pythagorean examples of overtones being used in different ways. Like that is a symbol we see a lot. Overtone structures being used to like build the pyramids and like weird stuff. So it can get really almost spiritual if you're into that. So I found that to be a really fun book that really kind of talks about the mysticism of music, and especially there's a lot of talk about overtones, kind of these theoretical undertones. It's a whole thing. So you don't need to read that for this class, but if that interests you, that's a recommended book.